Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Archie's Superhero Comics Digest Magazine number 2 from 1979. This was the only issue. There was no number 1. I don't know why this is number 2, and there was never a number 3, etc. This was, late 70s. Lots of these digest sized comic books from Marvel, DC, especially Archie, of course. They kind of pioneered the form, and that was their huge format for them. But I guess they had all this inventory stuff and these old reprints, and they figured, maybe we can get back into the superhero game. Of course, Archie, publishes all those teen comics, and this was, they figured maybe this will take off. It didn't. But there's a lot of great stuff in here. A lot of stuff that was never printed before. It was kind of sitting in a drawer somewhere in the Archie offices since the early 70s. So we start off with a Black Hood cover by Neal Adams and Dick Giordano. This is basically pastiched from some panels within a story that's in here. And so we start off with a Black Hood story. Now, this is written and drawn by Morrow. He even does the letters. He does everything except probably the colors. So this is from all the Black Hood stories in this comic. There's like 4 of them. They're from an unpublished Black Hood comic that Red Circle Comics in 1973 probably was going to publish. If you remember, Red Circle published like Red Circle Sorcery, all these different kind of mystery titles, and but I guess they were gonna dip their toe into the superhero genre, but it never got off. It never happened. But luckily, they had all this great art, and they reprinted it in here. So we basically start off with this cop, Kip Berland, and he's the kind of cop who just won't back down. His commanding officer, whatever, his sergeant, is all like, you got to back off. There's some powerful people you're implicating here. A lot of people aren't going to like this. The DA wants to put you in protective custody. And he's like, no, I can't operate that way. And he says, I'm going to talk to the one cop in this country that I can trust. So he gets on a flight to Texas. Look at this amazing sunset colors here. Especially for digest comics. A lot of these digest comics, like some of the Marvel DC ones, they're printed really crappily. So he flies to Texas so he can meet his Uncle Matt, who's an old lawman. He says that he's been following Kip's progress in the big city. And, basically there's headlines saying, like, Kip Berland skips town. He drops out of sight. So his Uncle Matt reveals to him something that Kip never knew. That back in I believe the 60s, back in the 40s, he was the Black Hood. And not only that, but the Black Hood is basically a generational thing. The Berland family, for centuries, has been donning the Black Hood to fighting for the reason of purpose of fighting injustice. We see flashbacks to all of these old Black Hoods. There was one in Renaissance Europe. There was one in North Africa breaking up a slave ring. And here's Uncle Matt himself looking like a cowboy. Oh, I guess it's 37. So in the 30s, he was fighting crime. Basically, he says, sometimes when you're a lawman, there's all this red tape. There's all this corruption in the government, and you just got to take the law into your own hands. So as soon as Kip gets back to the big city, He hooks up with his an electronics expert and armorer named Damien. He's an old friend of his. And he gets tricked out with all this cool gear. This Grimoire art is really nice. You could tell Grimoire was really into this. It's really tight Grimoire art. Look at this great panel here with this great shadow of the window blinds, really like film noir. And just that kind of illustration here. Just really nice stuff. So now it turns out Kip's been pressured into resigning. He's not a cop anymore, but he's going to take care of business as the Black Hood. And this is just great stuff. I wish it wasn't so tiny. This stuff has been reprinted in the 80s. Full-size comic size. So first he goes to Faye Trainer's club. She kind of has connections to the mob. He's hoping that she'll turn state's evidence. A lot of mobsters meet at her club. She's probably been sitting in on many high-level meetings where scofflawry was discussed. But she won't talk because the mob has kidnapped her daughter and basically threatened her, like, you better not squeal. So the Black Hood says, forget about that. Give me 3 hours. I'm going to get your daughter, and then you'll have no reason not to testify. Look at this. Just really nice stuff here. And the coloring of these is pretty damn good for a little tiny digest comic. So through his contacts, he was a cop for years. He's got all these great contacts. He finds out that these two mobsters are holding Faye Trainer's daughter at this warehouse. He blows his way into the warehouse. He's got a special gun that shoots like hand grenades, it says, but I don't know how you'd fit a hand grenade in a kind of a normal-sized pistol. But it has all these special bullets. He can do a tranq dart if he wants. He can do any kind of fancy, weird bullets. It's almost like Green Arrow and his crazy arrows, his trick arrows. So he rides his way in there, knocks these two mobsters on their ass. The girl gets on the motorcycle and they take off. So, of course, pretty soon they're in hot pursuit. He loses them through some fancy riding. They crash into a truck. And I kind of like this repartee between the two of them. So she convinces her mother that, this guy's on the level. He saved my life. She says, Mom, you owe this beautiful hooded nut. And if you don't do as he says, I'll get out of your life. Basically, I'll run away. That's a great drawing of Faye right there. That's beautiful. So she agrees to testify. And the Black Hood has his first victory against organized crime. Next, we have this nice S.H.I.E.L.D. story. This is from the Double Life of Private Strong, #1, from June 1959. And this was the product of Simon and Kirby. I think to this day, nobody knows who did what. They all kind of did the scripting together, the penciling and the inking. This is the Menace of the Micromen. So look at this great typical Kirby, fun imaginative stuff. I kind of like this shield, the shtick here. It's very much like when Steve Rogers in World War II was a private in the army. So basically Lancelot Strong, the alter ego of the Shield, he's in the army, he's in the tank crew, and he's a big bumbling idiot, kind of like a yokel. And the sergeant hates him. He's always just like razzing him. And also Lancelot Strong kind of razzes him back. He's always getting into trouble. Everyone thinks he's just a big buffoon. So I guess on this day, they're going to try out this new atomic tank. All by itself, the tank just drives off. No one's driving it. Someone's like remote controlling it. So Lancelot Strong runs after it and hitches a ride. Meanwhile, this general is getting a ride to the base to this atomic tank testing from his niece, who happened to pick him up when his car broke down. So Lancelot climbs into the hatch, dives into the hatch, and grabs the controls because the tank is heading right for the niece of this general and the general in their car. But somehow the controls have a life of their own, and the tank plunges madly ahead. But he did succeed in avoiding this car and killing these people. Of course, the general knows nothing of this tank, and he's pretty mad. He's just like, "What the hell are you doing, soldier?" And then this guy comes out of nowhere. This seedy-looking guy with a gun. Look at this face. It's like very 50s Simon Kirby. It almost looks like he had a stroke. It's just got a weird slack features. So he tells them that the tank wasn't driving itself. It was being driven by these little men. Lancelot Strong says, "Little men inside the tank all the time. They were at the controls and I couldn't see them," which is highly doubtful. I mean, he's grabbing the controls in this other panel. How could he not see these little guys on the controls? But whatever. So this bad guy, he throws a gas bomb. And it actually shrinks the general, his niece, and Lancelot Strong, and the tank. The printing on these is really good. I have some DC digests where like a lot of the detail gets lost. Look how sharp that is. Like Simon and Kirby are really drawing some detailed, fine detailing, and you can see every line of it. It's kind of nice. So finally, Lancelot Strong wakes up. He turns into the Shield. He's got to fight all of these little men, who I believe are now. Oh no, they're still little, and he's still shrunken down. Now basically he's got to go through all these traps, and a giant. Well, it's not a giant; it's giant to him. A chameleon tries to kill him. Whatever the hell this is, like a half rat, half wolf. I guess this evil guy is his name's Diablo, by the way. Oh wait, is it with a Q? Diablic? I'm going to call him Diablo. I think that's just a misprinting. On top of shrinking animals, he's also been experimenting with them and making weird hybrids, almost like Dr. Morrow. So finally, he's peering through this little window, and he sees Diablo, and now the general and his niece are full size. Some of the little men are now full size, because he can shrink or enlarge at will. So basically, he says that he's going to send the general and the niece to the subatomic realm. So even in 1959, Kirby, years later, he would have the microverse he would create in Fantastic Four. So I guess you could say that's exhibit 520, that maybe Jack Kirby had a lot more to do with the stories than Stan Lee did sometimes, because I'm sure that concept Jack was remembering this, So Shield, little tiny Shield, reaches into a drawer and grabs a gun, and pulls the trigger with his arm. He destroys the machine. And then little tiny Shield, he leaps at the guy and slugs him. Diablo's trying to crush him with his hands, but then all of a sudden the Shield pops back into full size. And then Diablo releases all of his experimental animals to attack him. I do think it is a Q. I don't know how you pronounce that. So like Diablo? I don't know. I'm still going to call him Diablo. I don't want to keep saying that word. So the Shield disappears, and Private Lancelot Strong, he changes into his Private Lancelot Strong guise. because he doesn't want, the General Anise to suspect anything. And they get in the atomic tank and they drive out of there and they escape. Kind of fun stuff. So now these are comics from, excuse me a second, let me get my page back up here. This is The Fly, The Lady and the Monster. This is script by Robert Bernstein, pencils and inks by John Rosenberger. I'm not familiar with John Rosenberger. Maybe he just drew Archie comics, normal Archie comics. I don't know. So this is from The Adventures of the Fly, number 13, July 61. Very interesting art style, Rosenberger. It's very strange. But some panels I kind of like, just the way he draws this woman every now and then. But then there'll be 4 other panels where she looks kind of wonky. So we see this model. She's showing off for reporters. She gets up on a parapet. She's showing off. And they're like, don't do it, you might slip. And indeed she does. It looks like she's falling to her death. But the Fly happens to be in the area, and he rescues her. She's instantly smitten with him, gives him a smooch as a reward, and says, you must come to the premiere of my new movie. As he flies away, she says, that's a man I could easily fall in love with. So he shows up. She's totally, he's her special guest, and it's a science fiction film. In the film, these aliens are chasing her. She says, good thing they're just imaginary. He says, you're wrong, Kim. That's her name, by the way, Kim. If you'd like to see, I'll take you to see an actual alien tomorrow morning. So he takes her to see Professor Julk, his friend. Professor Julk has basically made his own alien. He says, he's created a creature who has all the powers and characteristics of an inhabitant of the planet Saturn. I don't know how he knows. There are no inhabitants of the planet Saturn. And even if there were, I don't know how he knows what their characteristics are. But whatever, he made this goofy-looking creature here. He kind of looks like a 3-eyed Bigfoot with weird claw hands. I don't know. So, all of a sudden, the doctor has a heart attack, the professor, and he lands right on the control board, which activates the monster and brings it to life. The monster wakes up pretty angry. Grrr. I think more than a Bigfoot, he actually looks like a Mock from Thunder the Barbarian. So the Fly tries to just hit every button on the control board, hoping to stop him. It's not working. So he figures, I got to fight this thing. Meanwhile, Kim continues to hit buttons. Finally, she hits the right button. She zaps the monster, some kind of electric shock to its brain, and he collapses. The Fly grabs the professor. He says he's still alive. I'm going to rush him to the hospital. Get out of here. And she does, but her car won't start. Meanwhile, the monster is awoken. He may be even more angry than he was. Breaks through the wall and looks like he's going to attack Kim. But he kneels down before her. And he runs over to this greenhouse. She's like, why is he wrecking that greenhouse? Why is he crashing through the wall? It's so he could get her flowers. So he's very smitten with her, this monster. He won't let her escape. He's just carrying her around like a little doll. And the police show up. And bullets have no effect on him. Kim has run away in the fracas. And so now the monster is frantically looking for her. And he stumbles onto a missile base. He picks up a missile. The soldiers there shoot at him, of course, to no avail. So Kim runs out of hiding because she wants to save the lives of these soldiers and she doesn't want him to drop the missile. It could be a nuclear bomb or something. So she's back at his mercy. He takes her back to the laboratory and the Fly shows up. He figures they'd return there. I don't know how. but he does. He zaps him with his buzz gun, once again, to no effect. The fly tries to ram him. Nothing happens. They fall through the floor. And she basically, Kim comes up with a plan. She says they're going to pop out of that hole in the floor any second. So when the monster pops his head, she says, if you don't stop this fight, I'll destroy myself. But in his anxiety to seize Kim, the beast trips and grabs the high-tension wires himself and is electrocuted, seemingly. But as he examines the still form of the dead monster, she says, I don't understand. If the monster was indestructible, why did he die of electrocution? He didn't, Kim. He died of a heart attack, brought on by his fear of your dying. That repulsive creature loved you, Kim. 'Twas beauty killed the beast. What a sad ending for this poor monster. Right there, that's like, I don't know, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of good art. But a lot of the panels, she just looks weird. So this story we just looked at in Basically Strange #1, which reprinted a lot of Red Circle comics from the 70s. This was originally meant for an issue of Red Circle Sorcery. Which we have looked at before here. It's a damn shame that comic didn't continue. If they were getting names like Wally Wood, because I don't think any of the existing issues had Wally Wood. So they were up in their game, but then unfortunately they were canceled too early. So we just looked at this story. I'm not really going to get into the plot. It's kind of a fun Wally Wood story, kind of goofy, but it's nice seeing it in color. Even though it was pretty nice seeing it in black and white too. I'll just show this off. Yeah, that was weird. Just the coincidence of a week later, the same exact story reprinted. Though actually, this isn't a reprint. This is the first time it was ever published. Like 6 years after the fact. Yeah, that's some nice wood. So next we have The Death Ray from Space, a story of the Jaguar, another one of Archie's superheroes. This is from the early 60s revival of these superheroes. We've just read a few other ones. So this is from Adventures of the Jaguar, #5, March 1962. Once again, Robert Bernstein writes and John Rosenberger draws. Yeah, this is a very bland, annoying story. I guess superhero is so lame. So I guess the Jaguar has all the powers of the animals. So the Jaguar is called to a U.S. space laboratory. The head scientist says, you must help us. We've lost contact with our quote-unquote milk can satellite, which we shot into orbit. We last heard from the milk can as it went around the globe. And he kind of tells him its trajectory. Every 91 minutes, 400 miles above the Earth. We must learn what happened to the milk can. So it's very weird. He keeps saying this. Instead of just saying the satellite, it's this weird repetition of milk can. Of course, in the next panel, Jaguar is trying to replicate the flight path of the satellite, and he has to say it one more time. All the other satellites are fine. Only the milk can is missing. Oh my God, he does it again. I'll pinch it for the milk can and circle the Earth every 97 minutes as it did. So when he basically replicates the flight path of the milk can, he's pulled out of orbit into another atmosphere. I like these panels. This is kind of groovy right here. And he's sucked into this other dimension or another world. He's not sure. There's these aliens there. They say, seize him. If he resists, kill him. And he fights these aliens, flies up in the air with them in tow. and then shakes them off so they fall to the ground. And then they get him with this, they fire electrical coils that paralyze him, and they yank him down like reeling in a fish. Look what he sees here. The milk can satellite. It probably came through the same crack in the same, the dimension. So the head honcho says, we're going to run tests on him, making it sound like they're going to vivisect him. So he's just like, shit. But he says, but first, we must restore our injured comrades back to health with our cure. Because I can read your thoughts, I know what you're thinking. You're confused about this cure. It can cure anyone, any injury. It can bring you back from death's door. Jaguar thinks to himself, if I could only bring this back to Earth. And of course the guy hears his thoughts. He says, perish the thought. The cure would only bring destruction to your world. It only works on ours. I warn you. Later that night, as Jaguar awaits his fate, one of the aliens frees him. And he says, I hate that tyrant king. He lied to you. The cure will benefit living creatures everywhere. Take it. We have others. So Jaguar takes the cure and the milk can and heads back to that fissure in between dimensions. When he gets back on Earth, he's going to do an experiment. There's these animals, and they all have deadly diseases that no Earth medicine can cure. But when he fires the cure ray, it actually hurts them. It's a death ray. Then it starts going crazy, just flying around, zapping things. So luckily, it's chasing the Jaguar. It wants him for some reason more than anything. So he leads it away from Earth. He flies through the stratosphere and leads it back to the other dimension through that dimensional crack. And he realizes that guy who gave him the cure knew this would all happen. He was a double crosser. And the king wasn't a tyrant. And right when he gets there just in time as this double crosser is attacking the king. And this is just the Jaguar burrows underground and then pops up behind the double crosser and, takes him out. The king proves that he's not a tyrant. He says, don't kill him. His mind is sick. We'll cure him with another cure. So Jaguar realizes he's a benevolent king, and he returns to his normal dimension. Next we have the Hangman, and this is The 9 Lives of Falseface. Now this is written by Jerry Siegel, the creator of Superman, the writer of Superman, and pencils by Paul Reinman, inks by Joe Giella, and GCD says maybe Frank Giacomo, so who knows. Either way, the art's very kind of interesting in a very clunky way. As you can see. So we see this villain Falseface. He's basically going to retire. He's like, I've got all this loot after all my successful robberies. And basically Falseface is just like his name implies. He can change his appearance. He's like the chameleon. The Hangman pops up, and Falseface tries to run him over. Fails. And then the Hangman uses he's got like this magic noose. That's his kind of super weapon. And, it says it's a rope weapon, so I guess it's not technically a noose, thank God. Because that would be, that would be like a superhero named Captain Zyklon, who puts supervillains in a poison gas chamber to get rid of them. It would be kind of tasteless. So this stops Falseface's car and makes it crash. Falseface runs away, and he basically changes faces again. Pretends that he's just someone at the museum, and he even tries to trick Hangman by saying, hey, you must be after that crazy guy I just saw run that away. But Hangman's not fooled, and the false face knocks him over this balcony. But, God, I want to say the hood. The Hangman swings on the chandelier and takes out false face. This rope is crazy. He just has all these magic powers. He can make a force field just by whipping it in a circle that stops bullets. This Paul Reinman, I think, he worked at Marvel. It definitely has a, wannabe Jack Kirby flavor to it. So here's where the story just gets bonkers. So he grabs false face with his rope, swings him, and false face falls into the Egyptian room of the museum, colliding with a statue of an ancient cat god. As he gets up, a device in the artifact, triggered by the impact, shines a mysterious ray upon him, doubling him in size and multiplying him 9 times. So now there's 9 giant false faces that Hangman's got to beat up. And luckily the Hangman's quite a good fighter. So he's doing pretty good against these guys, but eventually he realizes they're too strong for him. False face says, "I owe it all to the fantastic rays from the cat god." And Hangman says, "Oh, so it's this statue, huh?" And he throws the statue, and somehow just throwing it and making it crash undoes the effects of the ray. So now he's back to normal size, and he's just one guy. Hangman slugs false face, ties him up, and the police show up. Now, guys, this is insane. I've never seen a story where it's not even a deus ex machina. It's just ridiculous. It's like there's no lead up to that. There's a cat god statue with mysterious rays in it, and at the last minute, the statue does the thing it does. They don't explain it later. Nothing. So weird. I mean, I guess just shoddy. They just didn't really give a shit. Pretty amazing, though. So now this is another part of this digest. We have like Archie reprints. There was a few Archie stories in the 60s, I believe. Actually, I could find out right now since I have this all. This is from 66 because this is after, the Batman TV show. So superheroes were a craze. Everyone was getting into the action, even Archie. So this, and in this case, even Betty. So this is Super Teen Strikes Again. This is written by Frank Doyle, pencils by the great Dan DeCarlo, and inks by his brother Vincent DeCarlo. And we see Betty saving Archie's life. He's about to get hit by a truck. It is amazing how Dan DeCarlo really, I know it sounds weird because they're like high school girls, but he really draws like these innocent girls, but they're kind of sexy. Dan DeCarlo I think that's why so many kids read, well, at least boys read Archie comics. This is ridiculous. Look at her. Archie's like, "I don't know who you are. Tell me your secret identity." And she's like, "Nope, I'm not going to tell you." She looks just like Betty in this weird outfit. She even like twists her ponytail, which turns her back into Betty. And it shows up a second later. Archie doesn't for a second think, "Wait a second, that was Betty. It looks just like her." So of course she's all like flirting with Archie, but then Veronica shows up. I don't remember Veronica having this like kind of mod haircut here. I guess I didn't read much Archie's. So she kind of steals Archie away like she always does. And Betty's annoyed, but she's also like, "I better keep my eye out on Archie so he doesn't get into trouble. I'll turn back into Super Teen." She's basically stalking the two, but not really. She just wants to protect them. And then this weird old guy shows up and gasses them with a cane. Knockout gas. I guess he's like a Russian spy. He says, "Ivan, Olaf, get them in the truck." So I guess they're kidnapping Veronica Lodge since her father is a wealthy industrialist. And they figure they can blackmail him or something for the communist cause. Of course, Super Teen's on the job. And then so I guess Superton can turn into anything she wants. She turns into this fat commissar. And of course, the Russians are like, don't run over the boss. We'll end up in Siberia. So the truck careens off the road. Betty saves Archie and Veronica. And somehow I think Veronica passed out. She's like, Archie, you saved me. Smooch, smooch, smooch. And once again, Betty gets the short end of the stick. Next, we have another Black Hood story. This is from that same unpublished comic. This one's written by Robin Snyder and Marv Channing, even though the credits just say Marvin Channing. So I don't know why GCD says that. And it's drawn by Al McWilliams, the guy who drew for Gold Key for decades. So we see the Black Hood in his Kip Berland, I should say. He's at this concert event. He's like, $20 for these shitty seats. And there's this world famous orchestra playing and the conductor. And all of a sudden, this thug comes out with a Tommy gun. And he says, we're kidnapping the whole orchestra. They'll be killed unless we get $100 million. This is so not as good as Gray Morrow art. Al McWilliams is kind of dull. So the next day, Kip goes to visit Doyle Damien, the guy who makes him all of his art, tricky artillery and stuff. So he thinks that the concert hall official must be in on the plot. Because all the bad guys were seated at a certain, dead center in the audience. I didn't mention there was other bad guys in the audience. So he goes to visit the guy. He denies it. And then he threatens him. The Black Hood's, he's not a goody two-shoes superhero. He's just a vigilante. He's like the Punisher. We'll see in later stories. He's pretty rough. So he finds out where this orchestra is being held. Of course, there's goons protecting them. That's a really nice panel. There's 2 Al McWilliams Black Hood stories in here. The second one you'll see even more so. I really suspect that because Gray Morrow and Neal Adams drew the other stories in that issue, he upped his game. There's some panels, Al McWilliams panels in some of these stories that are like, I've never seen him draw that good. That's impressive. Some of them look like Gray Morrow. Yeah, maybe Gray Morrow redrew him, I don't know. So then it turns out the whole thing's a sham, that the orchestra basically faked the whole kidnapping so they could get all the money. And I guess they've tied up Black Hood, but Black Hood has these little razors in his gloves. He frees himself, punches the conductor, the ringleader, and he jumps out the window just as the police arrive. And he's back with his friend Damien, who says, everything ended well. And Kip says, all except me, I'm still out $20 for that damn concert. Ha 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 ha. That's some funny business. Okay. God, that was the fakest laugh I've ever done. So next we have a Steel Sterling story, another one of Archie's Golden Age heroes that was revived in the 60s after Batman, So these late 60s ones, there's the early 60s revival. They were more straight, more like a DC comic of the time. But these late 60s ones are some of the worst super comics ever made. It's almost, they hired all these just guys who didn't, old guys, and they try to copy the surface level of Marvel Comics. They're like, Marvel Comics heroes, they all tell jokes and whatever. Doesn't that even look like a logo from a typical Marvel comic of the day? It's like they're really trying to eat Marvel Comics, but they had no clue how to do it. They didn't realize that, Stan Lee is just telling better stories than we're told before. That's the main ingredient, of course. The main ingredient is Jack Kirby and his creations. But also, as far as the stories went, no, it wasn't some trick that you could duplicate. You just read a good story. Read better stories, guys. But they didn't. These stories are ludicrous. So this story is really just badly plotted. It just jumps around. It starts off here. The narrator says, late one evening, Steel Sterling glimpses a handsome costume youth being pursued by a steel-helmeted adversary, zipping downward to interfere. But this is Steel Sterling being pursued by the steel-helmeted adversary. It doesn't. There's so many things here that really don't even make like. There was no editing. Like any editor would have said, like, "What are you talking about? This Steel Sterling's not watching this. He's a part of it." So it just starts off. We have no idea who these characters are, and this helmeted guy, he says, "You shall not cheat me, the metal mask, out of destroying the awesome Bravo." That's the name of the story, by the way. We have no idea who this awesome Bravo is. And I'm sorry, did I mention? Written by Jerry Siegel, but pencils by Paul Reinman. Once again, inks by Joe Giella, possibly Frank Giacomo. This is just really clunky art, but you could tell that they were looking at Jack Kirby comics. So he knocks Steel Sterling out of this, I don't know, they're in a castle? This cannon comes out, tries to blow up Steel Sterling, but he's, I guess, got iron skin, or steel skin, and the musket ball or whatever, the cannonball just breaks up when it hits him. He says, though the awesome Bravo may have escaped, you will not escape the Autumn Kill Building. It's a really dumb name. So it's just basically, it's this building, has all these traps in it. And then he's really close to being killed by this one trap, these deadly razor-sharp prongs. And then this guy comes out of nowhere, stops the machine, and says, I'm the awesome Bravo. And he says, I've been battling ultra-villains for years. That's the thing in the Archie comics, and they kind of alternate between calling them superheroes and supervillains, or ultra-heroes and ultra-villains. So this Bravo gained magical powers, but due to a stellar alignment, he lost them. So he has no powers. And he says all of his foes are out to destroy him now. They all know he has no powers. Steel Sterling says, not if I can help it, friend. They're walking through a zoo, by the way. And all of a sudden, a cage door opens, and all these jungle cats, a lion and a tiger, break out and attack. Right then, a trap door opens up, and they fall into it. In a weird laboratory, Steel Sterling sees this TV screen, and we see this guy named Beastor. He says, it was I who unlocked the cage doors to drive you into my clutches. That's a kind of really cool-looking villain. Just really weird. Looks like something from like a heavy metal album cover. And then, I like these guys too. He releases he has a welcoming committee for them of these weird mutants he's created. I like these guys. This looks like some cool imaginative Kirby stuff. So all of a sudden, Steel Sterling just finds these tubes of chemicals and keeps throwing them at the monstrosities until they dissolve. He says, grab hold of me, Bravo. We'll get out of here. So then there's another weird thing. They're going to explain it later in a very stupid way. But he says, save yourself. Sooner or later, my foes will destroy me. And it looks like he's flying away, but then he's immediately boomerangs back and says, no, I'm not going to cut out on you. I'm going to be your bodyguard. So Bravo goes to his cave hideout, and Steel Sterling stands outside to protect him. And then this guy shows up. And I think he's called the Deadly Dimensional with quotes around it. He basically says, I'm going to space-time project us into the future, where you shall meet a catastrophic end. And then I'll return to destroy Bravo at my pleasure. So he grabs Steel Sterling. They go through this time warp, and they end up in the far future of Earth, when Earth is almost dying. It's a convulsing, dying planet. Volcanoes erupting. None of this makes sense. Why? It doesn't help him to take him to this future to defeat him. If he wanted to beat him up, he could have just done it on the present day. It makes no sense. But I guess it's a dramatic setting. He even says, you should thank me for killing you in such a spectacular setting. I'll thank you with a belt and the kisser, you third-rate fink. Not just a fink, he's a third-rate fink. He's very bad at being a fink. So he says, if I die here, so do you, Crumb. So he says, you win. I'll project us back to the present. And seconds later, the whole earth explodes. So now back in the present, this guy all of a sudden just quits. He says, I'm going to return to the dawn of time. See you later. So now Steel Stirring goes into the cave to see how Bravo's doing. And he says, wait, I feel strange. It's like my magic powers have come back to me. And as soon as they do, he attacks Steel. He levitates him and starts spinning him around. He said, I never lost my magic. I'm a chameleon who can change his appearance at will. I was actually all of those villains who attacked you and toyed with you. Okay, here's another one of these things. It's like, what? Just literally pulling, okay, not literally, just pulling shit out of their ass. So abruptly within the cave, a group of rocks began to change shape, altering themselves into the form of men. We are good mutants, come to annul the threat of an evil mutant. We remove your mystic might forever. No longer can you do evil unto humans. Who the hell are these guys? Where'd they come from? No explanation. But, I mean, there is this kind of half-ass explanation. So, this giant word balloon, Steel Stirring said, I suspected the Bravo was a faker who transformed herself into the villains who were supposedly after him, when it dawned on me that I never saw the hunter and the hunted together at the same time. I alerted the good mutants, figuring I need their help if I confirm my deductions. The word balloon is so big that Steel Stirring has to duck his head awkwardly to fit into the panel. Look at that. And then that goofy flight he took earlier when he boomeranged back, that triangular flight pattern of mine in the sky was the signal that tipped off the Mutant League. Was the signal, I think they meant to write. Reaching your hideout before you, they disguised themselves as rocks. And then as they all walk away with Bravo in custody, Sterling says, or thinks to himself, nice guys, even if they do look stoned. Next we have The Web, and this is Ugly Man's Ugliest Plot. This is also from that same period, like 66, 67 Archie superhero revival, written by Jerry Siegel and drawn by Paul Reitman, supposedly pencils and inks. And this is, once again, really hard to follow. Just like, it seems like Jerry Siegel forgot all story structure. So we just start off with this guy, Ugly Man, and he's in a junkyard, and he's saying, come out, Brett Winslow. I know you're in that garbage can. I know you're the idol of millions of drooling female movie fans. And he comes out and he's all like, choke, moan. Why do you relentlessly hunt down handsome leading men? I'm ugly. They aren't. That's reason enough. And then the Web comes out of nowhere. It says, surprise, Ugly Man. I traced Winslow. I knew you'd be up to no good. So we have a little fight here, very silly. Just really dopey. At one point he even says, like, he's got this like car hood as a shield because Ugly Man keeps throwing scrap metal at him. He says, well, you're throwing everything at me but the kitchen sink. And then he says, he gets a kitchen sink thrown at him. I withdraw that inaccurate remark. So now Winslow jumps on his back. They're trying to get to safety, but Ugly Man attacks him once more, and the Web defeats him. So now he sees Ugly Man descend into this sewer hole. A manhole, I mean. And the web says, oh, my wife's going to kill me. She won't let me sit at the dinner table for a month if she knew I was traipsing about the sewer. When he gets to the sewer, he can't see Ugly Man. He actually says, I'm not that much of a hero. I'm not that heroic. I'm not going to follow this guy through the sewer. And when he comes out, the sanitation truck drenches him with water. He tells the sanitation truck driver, look what you've done. Didn't it ever occur to you that a superhero might be crawling out of a sewer? And the running gag in this is that nobody knows who he is. Apparently, he was more of a hotshot superhero at one point. He had stronger powers, but that's not the case. So we realize as you read this is like a lot of those other late 60s revival superheroes. They're inadvertently funny because they're so bad. This one is really trying to be funny, and I gotta say it's kind of fun because the whole thing, it's like a sitcom where he's constantly just like, oh, Rose, my wife is gonna be so mad at me. So he's like, oh shit, I gotta go home. I promised my wife I'd never be the web again. So she's entertaining in the back patio, so he can't sneak in the back. So he figures that he'll jump into the sprinkler, pretend he trips on it, so that will explain why he's drenched. And the wife pretends that she's not onto him as she entertains her guests. She's all smiling and happy. But as soon as they leave, she's just all like, I saw everything. You were already drenched before you stepped on that thing. And he knows he can't lie to Rose. He says, okay, I became the web again. And she's all sob. I knew it. After all your promises. He's like, I can't fight it, Rosie. I had so many great triumphs. Like, remember when I defeated the vegetable? I believe we saw this supervillain in that World's Worst Comic Book Awards. He looks like just a giant lima bean. He's really ridiculous looking. And so now he gets home and she says, you want to talk about vegetables? Peel those potatoes. So he hears on the radio that Ugly Man threatens to attack the Fab Film Corporation. That's where all the handsome starlets are, or stars are, that he hates. He says, I'm not going to go. And then he says, I'm going. But he kind of tricks his wife into coming with him. He's like, hey, honey, wouldn't it be fun to go down to the studio? Because she wants to meet these, handsome stars. So now we see a scene being filmed with one of these hunks. And, excuse me, guys. And the web notices Ugly Man in the shadows. So he puts on his costume, and he chases after Ugly Man. He falls out this prop door. Ugly Man tricks him into falling out this prop door, and he falls right into the cement. And then Rose is right behind Ugly Man, and she wallops him with her purse, knocking him into the cement. They start slugging it out. This is gives you a tenor of how this comic is, how goofy it is. This guy says, police, them two guys aren't exactly cementing a fond friendship. There's a lot of bad jokes like that. And the web knocks out Ugly Man. Turns out he was wearing a rubber ugly mask. He's really a young, handsome movie star who I guess wanted to thin out the competition. His name's Ernie Misty. It's a weird name. The weird thing is about this whole story is that this mask isn't that ugly. It's not very ugly at all. I mean, he's not handsome, but you would never be like, oh my God, that guy's horrible. I could have done much better. Actually, I had a character in, this is a plug. In the notes section, if you want to support the channel, you could buy my old comic book that I did with Chris Cilla on art. Chris Cajero Cilla. It's called Swanknibus. It's $12. It's a lot of stuff crammed in there, though. I think it's a decent price for how much stuff is in there. And you will see my Captain Ugly strip. Well, I wrote it. And when I saw this guy was called Ugly Man, I was like, oh, maybe I subconsciously knew about this story. Even though Captain Ugly's way better than this. Not to brag. It's not really bragging because this is stupid as fuck, this story. So, of course, when he gets home, Rose is mad as hell. I like this how nobody knows his name here. This guy says, "Thank you, ma'am, for being a good citizen. You too, Jeb. The name is Webb." And Rose is thinking, when I get him home, his name will be Mud. And when he gets home, he mentions the vegetable again, how he defeated him, and she makes him peel the onions. Oh, I want to read more of these. They're kind of fun. So next we have Pure Heart the Powerful in the Tarantula's Trap. This is another one of those Archie goofy superhero comics that they did. This is from 1967. This is written by Frank Doyle, possibly pencils by Bill Vigoda, but it has a question mark, so who knows who drew this. Whatever it is, it's kind of fascinatingly bad, this art, especially considering that it was in an Archie comic. So we see the supervillain, the Tarantula. Now, Pure Heart the Powerful is Archie. Evil Heart is Reggie. And it's weird because they're Pure Heart is obviously a superhero, but Evil Heart is pretty evil. He's Reggie. But he also kind of fights crime or fights villains, but usually just for his own self-interest. It's kind of a weird character. There's some really interesting background characters in here. Look at these great faces. It kind of reminds me of like Hilary Barta. These are like Hilary Barta faces. Not as lushly rendered, but really nice. So they fail. The tarantula gets away. Everyone's all like, "Get out of here, you bums. You suck at being superheroes." So they turn back into Archie and Reggie. Veronica runs up saying, "My diamond earrings, they've been stolen." So these guys both turn into their superhero personas. And then basically, for the next few pages, Evil Heart, Reggie, just keeps trying to, like, not kill Archie, but, like, beat the crap out of him. And, like, so he can get the diamond earrings for Veronica to be the hero. So he's got these weird evil weeds whose seeds will instantly seek out evil, and all he has to do is follow them. So he blows the seeds so he can find the tarantula. Meanwhile, Archie wakes up from being cocked to the head. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to catch up to Reggie." This old lady says, "Oh, he went that away," because Archie's looking for Evil Heart. And it turns out it's Reggie. And he jumps behind a fence and conks Archie again on the head. Look how weird this art panel is here. I mean, it's just basically bad art. And you know what I suspect? Like, those faces in the crowd were really good. Like, good, funny art. And I suspect that this artist drew Archie comics for years and just didn't know how to draw, like, musculature superhero comics. Because there's all these crazy ink lines. Almost like bad Kirby imitators who are, like, trying to get those squiggles and the musculature. And it's just like, you don't really know your anatomy yet. We'll see more better examples later. So once again, Archie keeps trying to chase Evil Heart instead of looking for the tarantula, strangely enough. And Reggie keeps tricking him by dressing up as other people. So Archie ends up falling into this grease pit at a garage. Meanwhile, of course, due to all of this, Reggie's got he's way in advance of Archie. And he makes it to Tarantula's weird haunted house-looking headquarters. Look at this weird cartooning here. This is like Art Brut or something. So the tarantula captures Reggie in this giant web. Some more of this weird art. This looks like crazy Golden Age art, you know? It's really bizarro. Archie shows up. And this page is really crazy. Look at these. This almost reminds me of like Grass Green, his superhero parodies. It really looks like fanzine art from the 60s. Like, doesn't quite get it. Oh man, look at this shading here. Just these black splotches supposedly denoting his back muscles and arms. It's just crazy. So the tarantula tries to grab Archie and put him in a death grip. But because he took that grease bath earlier, he squeezes through his hands, pops up into the sky, and lands right on the tarantula's head, knocking him out. He runs into the house, opens the safe. I guess he's got these superpowers that can help him open safes. And there's a note in there that says, "Thanks for taking care of the tarantula, sucker. Signed, Evil Heart. I got the rings while you were fighting him." So he rushes back to town. Everyone's cheering on Evil Heart as a great hero. And Archie's just like, God damn it. Fuck. No use trying to set everyone straight. And they hook up with Veronica again. And she's just like, oh, that Evil Heart's so great. Very silly. Next, we have this story called Time Twist, written by Tom DeFalco. I don't know if you guys know this, but Tom DeFalco started at Archie Comics way before he started at Marvel. And this was also from that the last issue of Red Circle Sorcery, which never came out. And I'm sorry, the art is by Chick Stone. This is a pretty dopey story. We see all of these villagers. They're like, destroy the vampire. And they're storming his castle. He says, looks like they've got me cornered this time. I knew this day would come. Luckily, my assistant, Victor, is a brilliant scientist. And Victor has made a time machine. He says, I can project us 5 years into the future to escape this mob. They make it into the future. And as soon as they get there, the vampire says, I no longer need you. Here's your reward for your faithful service. And he feeds on him. Gets in his coffin, and he's ready to wake up the next night to explore this new world. He sees 3 figures coming his way. He's like, easy prey. Now I shall feast. And he says, wait, this can't be true. And he runs away screaming. And it turns out it's 3 robot people. And it says, he almost looks human. Can't be. Humans have been extinct for the last 200 years. Couldn't breathe the polluted air. I'm sorry, guys. I totally forgot to mention the time machine screwed up. Instead of 5 years, it went 500 years into the future. And it was really hard to breathe. So, but I mean, even if you knew that, it's not the best twist ending. I like how she does have little sprockets coming out of her neck where the vampire tried to bite her. Next, we have another story from that 60s post-Batman revival. And this is the Fox in The Gasser Attacks. Now, guys, this one's really weird. So, once again, really disjointed writing and stuff. And, guys, give me one moment. I gotta take my sweatshirt off. It's fucking hot in here. I put the heat on too high. It's freezing outside. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain how weird this is to you. So we start off in a discotheque, the Emerald Room. Paul Patton, a newspaper photographer, is hanging out with go-go dancer Delilah. She's saying, when will we get married, Paul? He's all joking, don't grovel, baby. It doesn't look good on you. She says, why are you so elusive? And he says, sorry, chick, gotta leave. Acting like a total dick. In the parking lot, though, as he drives away, he says, this is really eating at me. Happiness so mockingly near, yet so maddeningly unobtainable. If only I could marry Delilah. But there are obstacles, all to do with the Fox, his alter ego. So eventually he makes it to his mansion, stately Patton Manor. It turns out he has a fox den instead of a bat cave. And he has this like film projector, and he says, play clip number 21K12. And it's just a clip of Delilah go-go dancing. And he's just saying, I love her more than I can bear. I want so desperately to marry her. Yet I've got to play Mr. Unobtainable. And then it says it's the Beauty and the Beast tale all over again. The groovy chick and the gruesome admirer. which has nothing to do with the story. He's not gruesome. It's just that he has this superhero alter identity, which he thinks he cannot be her boyfriend because, and they don't really explain why. Other superheroes have girlfriends. So then he says, I must continue my crusade against crime as the Fox. But then soon, apparently he doesn't go out to fight crime. He goes to the discotheque and he thinks to himself, in all her frantic majesty, the girl I love. And apparently he sits there night after night. A customer thinks this. I says, there he is again. What a lovesick fool. And so apparently he comes every night as the Fox to stare at her. It's so weird. And he just sits there at a table. Nobody questions that there's a superhero at this disco just sitting around. And every night he sends a present to her, backstage. And it's this perfume and a rose. And so weird. And the whole time he's just sitting there. And then he tries to explain it. It says, not even a glance from me. What a triangle. She loves Paul. Thinks the Fox is a repulsive weirdo. Yeah, because you come to her disco every night and just stare at her and give her a present. How fucking weird is this? And she says, if I can get her to love me as the Fox, she won't insist I drop this identity after she marries me. It's like, you don't even know she will. You just assume she will. So that's the whole crux of this fake problem. Meanwhile, these villains run in with gas masks. The leader's called the Gasser. He puts everyone asleep, and before he gets knocked out, the Fox tries to take out as many as he can. But eventually he succumbs to the gas. They grab the girlfriend, because apparently she's wearing a bedazzled dress with priceless gems on it. Oh, I'm sorry, her name's Delilah, I forgot. The cops show up. It's too late, though. When the Fox wakes up, kind of tells him what's going on, but then he leaps out the window and says, I got work to do. He gets in his car, and apparently that perfume he gives her every night has a tracer in it. So he follows her to this warehouse. I gotta like he just drives his car right through the door. They shoot at his car. The gasser tries to gas him. The Fox has got this crazy thing, almost like one of those things that knocks cows out of the way on a train. What do you call that thing? He bowls over all these bad guys. And then he says, jump in the car, Delilah. So the gasser says, I'm going to give you poison gas now. Fox kicks and breaks this gas cane. And then he says, I've also got this harpoon cane. He throws this steel-tipped dagger that's coming out of the cane base, or cane handle, at the Fox. I've never seen this before. He's got steel. He's got his boot is harder than steel, so he just kicks up like a showgirl dancer and stops it with the bottom of his foot. I don't think I've ever seen that move in a comic. He so much looks like the Black Panther. It's crazy. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to mention. This is written by Jerry Siegel. Pencils by Paul Reidman. Inks by Chick Stone. That was the thing with the Archie superhero line. They tried to get as many out of work or lure over Marvel talent, but they got all the worst ones. That's all they could afford. Most of the guys at Marvel were like, we're not leaving. Marvel's ascending. So as they drive away, the Fox says, I'd really appreciate a date with you. And she's like, I'm sorry, you're just not my type. Also, I couldn't two-time Paul. And he's so pathetic. He's just like, come on, not your type. How do you know? If you won't go out with me socially. If you would just talk to me more, maybe, perhaps, maybe. And she's like, the answer is no. And then She goes back to her job the next night, go-go dancing, and the fox is sitting there watching her and sighing. Am I crazy or is that fucking weird? That's the weirdest setup for a superhero, like a romance triangle thing. That's bizarre. So now we have another Black Hood story from that unpublished issue, and this is a great one. Life's Not a Comic Book. And this is actually, the plot's by Gray Morrow, but the story and art is by Neal Adams and Dick Giordano. This is some really nice art. This is like classic Denny O'Neil, Neal Adams Batman level of craft going on here. So one day, Kip Berland, who's now a private detective since he got fired from the force, is at the park girl watching. Is just eating a hot dog. He sees these, in broad daylight, he sees these two guys chase after this woman. He's like, they're too well dressed to be muggers. What the hell's going on? He gets on his motorcycle, drives up to the guys, leaps off, and attacks them. Oh man, this is just such good Neal Adams art. This is like kind of his prime. And Dick Giordano is just perfect for his pencils. So, I guess those, he turns around. Those two gangsters were playing possum. As soon as he turns around, I think the police were coming, so he's waiting for him. They jump in their car with the girl. So he pulls out his gun. He realizes he can't shoot because there's too many people. And then he gets on his motorcycle and chases them. We have this exciting chase. I like this, how they shoot out his front tire, the bad guys. And so he has to pop a wheelie because his front tire is deflated. Like for like blocks. Yeah, finally he takes his Magnum revolver out and blows the hood off the car. The car crashes. Did I miss a page here? Yes, I did. But unfortunately he crashes with the motorcycle on top of his body, so he's pinned, and the bad guys get away. The police show up. They untangle him from his motorcycle wreck, and the cops say, come down to the station. Maybe you can recognize this girl in our mug book. He can't find her. These cops are giving him shit about quitting the force, even though he was fired. And he's basically saying, there's too much corruption in the police force. I can do more work, outside of it. And then he sees a poster for this concert, and it's her. It's the woman. So using his contacts, he does some research and finds out that the girl's a model. She dropped out of sight yesterday. And her roommate's name is Rhonda Lee, parentheses, fake name. 10 minutes later, Rhonda Lee, parentheses, fake name. That was very odd. The Black Hood comes into her apartment. Now, this is just a roommate of the missing girl. And he comes in with his gun pulled on her. So, of course, she's terrified. By the way, guys, look at this just classic Neal Adams, Dick Giordano work. That's just, like, perfect. And, of course, she's furious. She thinks she's one of the bad guys who kidnapped, her roommate, Deborah. And he keeps saying, I'm here to help. And he still got the gun pointed at her. So she even says, like, how am I supposed to believe that? Was he pointing a gun at me? So he hands her the gun. She points it at him, says she's going to call the cops, but then she realizes, they told me not to call the cops. It might get her in trouble. So she says that she's in a small tool shed at Brody's Wharf. Her boyfriend is trying to arrange to have a boat take her out of the country, but she's not safe there, and I know it. You've got to help her. Now the art gets even better here, guys. I love these dark scenes. Neal Adams was so good at that, like drawing scenes at night. And so he gets to the wharf, kicks in the door, says, where's the girl? They took her down to the boats. Oh, it's the boyfriend. He says, help her. It's my girl. Black Hood just jumps out of the second-story window, runs down to the wharf. The bad guys are firing at him, but Black Hood takes them out with his Magnum. I love this shot here. Only Neal Adams would do that. That's a really hard shot to do anatomically, and from that angle and perspective, he does it perfectly. I just wanted to point out, too, how interesting this is. Like, this cover here if you look at it, it looks like, oh yeah, that was drawn by the artist to look like that. But it's really a total pastiche. This little black hood, they enlarged this. This guy, they shoved on the left. And these two, they shoved on the right, as you can see here. And maybe they just drew this building behind. Oh no, it's in the original drawing. But they changed it. I think they redrew it. God, this is just stellar Neal Adams stuff. Look at that panel. So, the mobsters basically are just like, leave the girl, but we can't leave her alive. So as they pull out in their motorboats, 2 motorboats, they fire back at the wharf and they kill the woman. I was really surprised by that. I was like, what? She's dead? And look at the look on the Black Hood's face. That's a great panel. He's like, they killed her. Damn, 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 damn. This is 4 times. He sees one of the straggler assassins trying to get into another motorboat. And he kills the guy, grabs his motorboat, and chases the 2 bad guys' boats. They split up. So one of them, he just fires at their gas tanks. It explodes. Then he chases the other one, and he's like, I'm never going to make it. They got too much of a head start. So he basically makes a jump over this dock that descends into the water. And he lands right on their boat, causing it to explode. It does seem weird that he doesn't die in this explosion. Oh, I'm sorry. Look, it's very tiny. He dives out of the boat before it lands on them. Eventually, the cops show up, and Black Hood's just sitting there. And this is really weird. So one of these cops says, you know, you did a pretty clean job of taking care of those guys. We kind of owe you one. But there's that girl over there. This was all done to save her, but she's dead. That wasn't part of the plan, was it, friend? Heroes are for comic books. This is real life, and in real life, people die or are killed, no matter what we do to stop it. Whoa, that's some pretty heavy stuff. This is like a grim and gritty hero from the 80s, but this was 73. But it kind of makes sense, because in the movies, Death Wish was very popular. These kind of, vigilante movies like Dirty Harry, and they didn't mess around. It wasn't like, oh no, I never kill. They were like the Punisher, and that's when the Punisher came out around that same time. So I'm curious. I really wish in an alternate reality this issue was published in 1973. I wonder if it would have had an impact, especially with this great art. I mean, it probably would have done okay. So now we have another Simon and Kirby Shield story from the same time as the other one. This is still 59. This is from number 2 of Double Life of Private Strong, and this is called The Ultrasonic Spies. Once again, we have this kind of humorous opening with the sergeant and giving poor Private Strong grief, and he's acting like a big dumb lug. This seems like very much like the Challengers of the Unknown era Jack Kirby. But the faces, there's so many eras of Jack Kirby's greatness where, I really like 70s crazy wonky Jack Kirby, but I love mid-60s slick, great Fantastic Four Jack Kirby. I like 50s Jack Kirby, like Boys Ranch and stuff. There's many periods to choose from. I guess the only one I don't like is the final years, like Hunger Dogs graphic novel. That's just sad. So now this sergeant is he's going to have a nervous breakdown because of this Private Strong. It's very much like Gomer Pyle and his sergeant, he's just like, oh, God damn it, Strong, I can't take it. So meanwhile, we cut away. There's a new experimental supersonic bomber being tested by these 2 pilots. Seems that these 2 spies smuggled themselves on board. And they say, we know how to fly this baby ourselves, even though we don't look like it. And they usher the pilots to the hatch and just throw them out into space. Lancelot Strong sees this. He leaves his tank, turns into the Shield. I didn't even know the Shield could fly. I guess he can. He flies up and grabs these two guys. And then, of course, he chases after these two spies. They're trying to get to the communist countries. It's implied that they're Russians. They shoot at the Shield with machine guns. And they miss. He just flies in between the bullets. They try to, they drop a nuclear bomb on him. And the Shield grabs it. He's like, I can't let this drop. But then he flies over their plane and says, I'm going to drop this on you unless you land the plane. So they realize they're beaten. They fly down back to American soil to return the plane so they don't get nuked. Turns out it was just a dummy bomb. It was part of the whole test in the first place. He could tell because he also has X-ray vision. He has every power, apparently. And then he says, I got to go. Of course, he returns to his alter ego. He's back in his tank. And, of course, he's in trouble with the sergeant. It's pretty funny stuff. That's a great... I love this panel of the sergeant yelling at him here. It's just a great caricature. Here's another story that was supposed to be in Red, that last unpublished issue of Red Circle Sorcery. The Beast in the Forest. Story by Tom DeFalco. Art by Jesse Santos, moonlighting from Gold Key Comics for once. And this is a tale, is after the Trojan War. One of the Trojans, as the city was burned to the ground by the Greeks, this guy Tantalus escaped, dazed and wounded. He wandered into this forest, and turns out it was the forest of the beasts. He's found by these centaurs, and they're all just like, we should just kill him. Men are evil. He'll bring sorrow to the forest. But this dryad, this woman here, her name's Euryaleda. She says, oh no, we must spare him. Can we not show him kindness? She nurses him back to health, and of course they fall in love. I really like some of this Jesse Santos artwork. He's definitely got his singular style. Now, one of these, I think is a centaur. He's a goat boy, it says. He's kind of like Dionysius, but they just call him a goat boy. His name's Morrow. He's pissed off because he loved Euryaleda. And so he comes up with this plan. He knows how men are. So he doesn't have to do anything that bad. He just lets Tantalus know about the amazing treasure they have in this tree, knowing that he's a man and who probably will, try to steal it, which of course he's dead on. That night, Tantalus wakes up when everyone's asleep, goes to the tree, and is like, now I can rebuild Troy and avenge its honor and attack Greece. But Yuri, I'm going to call her the Dryad. That name's hard to say. She says, what are you doing? Let's just return. Let's forget this ever happened. And he says, sorry, Euryaleda. The glory of my homeland is much more important than your life or my happiness. And he kills her with a rock to the head. And all he can say is, ashamed to waste such a beautiful woman. Pity our values were so different. I must try to remember her when I'm king. What a piece of shit. So the centaurs show up and they're like, you killed our friend. You must die. And what of Morrow, the jealous goat boy? He spent the long night in vigil over Euryaleda's resting place. But in the morning, Morrow could not be found. The end. Very odd little ending there. So next we have, this was in Chilling Adventures in Sorcery. This was when Sabrina hosted the comic. There was a couple issues where it was just like a Sabrina comic, but also slightly darker. It was weird. I've seen the art from them, and it's a mix of like Dan DeCarlo type art, but also like more shaded, a little more realistic. It's really interesting. But this is just one of those short stories that comics used to feature to satisfy postal regulations. And I gotta say, guys, I've read a lot of those over the years. They're always shit. They're always just like, we have to fill a page. Let the guy in the mail room write a story. We don't care. This is like the best written one I've ever read. It's actually quite good. Yeah, Grand Comic Database has no idea who did it. We'll probably never know. But it was very surprising. I was just like, what? One of these is actually, it's actually written okay. So now we have another crazy fly story from the mid to late 60s. This is The Fly Meets the Cat Girl. This is Robert Bernstein writing and John Giunta drawing. Now in the 50s, John Giunta, I've seen some of his stuff. He was really good. But by I'm sorry guys, this is from 1960. So this is that early revival. But this site's kind of weird. And it's really weird how much it like reminds me of Trina Robbins. Maybe because this villainess, the cat girl, she looks like Panther, Trina Robbins' underground comics hero. But just a lot of it looks like Trina to me. Very simple, clean lines, you know. So we start off in a zoo. The guard there sees cat eyes in the night. He thinks it's an escaped jungle cat, but it's cat girl. He sees her eyes. And she's just wearing a weird costume. Of course, the guy's like, "You're actually, what's this beautiful woman doing around dressed in this crazy costume?" She scratches his gun belt, claws it, and then says, "I'm going to slash your face to ribbons if you don't free all the animals. Animals should not be locked up. They were born to roam the jungles wild and free." So actually, I'm sorry, she takes the keys from him and does it herself. She releases all of these animals. It's just a weird, I don't know why this panel's so interesting to me. It's not really like well composed or that well drawn, but just the way this leopard's in the foreground, that's really well drawn. And I don't know, it struck me. Meanwhile, at the law offices of Thomas Troy, that's The Fly, he hears about this event. He says, "I must get to the zoo at once," says The Fly. So he shows up and he starts zapping the escaped animals with his buzz gun. And then apparently The Fly has amazing digging powers. And once again, this shit is so convoluted. He could just keep zapping these guys with his buzz gun, but no, he has to spend his time digging these huge trenches, tiger traps, and the tigers fall into them. But that doesn't take care of all of them. So this one is even more ridiculous. Using his incredible strength, he cuts down all these trees. He makes this kind of barricade, a stockade. This would take, even if he had super speed, this would take a long time. And then using by rubbing his wings together like a cricket, he'll emit a high-pitched piercing sound that will stampede the beasts into the direction of the stockade. So dumb. All of this is so ridiculous. So it works. He actually puts in the last two trees. They're all trapped. Apparently 2 animals did escape. And so they're still at large. So The Fly finds out about this pretty girl dressed in a cat costume. And here's another just dumb line where Fly's like, "It's a nice evening for a walk. I think I'll stretch my legs a bit before I go on patrol." You could stretch your legs on patrol. It's the same thing. You're running around looking for crime. That's stretching your legs. Sorry to be that kind of guy, but it's really silly, some of this stuff. And he runs into Cat Girl. She's got the escaped jungle cats. One of them leaps at the Fly, and he lifts up a manhole cover. This is really fast, and this panther falls right into the sewer. The tiger attacks him. He uses the manhole cover as a shield, and the tiger just conks himself on the head. And then Cat Girl takes to the fire escapes, starts climbing up a building. But on the way up, she trips and falls. The Fly rescues her, and she's amazed. She's like, "I tried to kill you, and you saved my life." And she says, "Fly me home to my cave in the hills. I will reveal my secret." So there's all these mountain lions around. She says, "Don't worry. I've ordered them not to harm you." And he says, "Why do you befriend all animals?" And then as soon as he drops her into the cave, she says, "You shouldn't have trusted me. Now you will not leave here alive unless you promise never to interfere with my operations again." He says, I'll promise nothing. Who are you? And she says, that's for you to find out. If you solve the riddle who I am, I'll leave the city in peace. He says, I'll accept the challenge. And then he circles all of her jungle cats, or I guess these look like mountain lions, I guess, or bobcats. He circles them at great speed to create a vacuum over their heads, so they'll faint from lack of oxygen. Dumb. But then he says, wait, how come you're not passing out? Everyone needs oxygen. How come you can breathe? And she says, you got to solve the riddle. So then he uses his buzz gun again, and it doesn't affect the cat girl. And so then the lions keep attacking him, and so he turns into a giant firefly. He's a million fireflies in one, and it dazes the cats and blinds them. And the lions run away because they're afraid of fire, you know? They stampede her. She kind of falls over, and when he sees the silhouette of her kneeling position, he says, I know who she is now. He says, you're the Sphinx, cat goddess of old Egypt, who has the body of a lioness and the face of a beautiful woman. Even though she has the body of a woman, she just has a tail. And he guesses correctly. She says, very well, I am the Sphinx, the immortal defender of the animal world. I'll leave you in peace for now, but our paths will cross again. And when they do, your life will be forfeit. And as she runs away, God, looks like Trina. We do realize that she might be a possible romantic interest, almost like Catwoman to Batman. She's like, she does make a fascinating enemy. I'm almost looking forward to our next meeting. Intriguing. So now we have the final Black Hood story. This one's written by Marv Channing and drawn once again by Al McWilliams. And there's some startling Al McWilliams panels in here, even though for the most part it's typical Al McWilliams. So we see the Black Hood. He's feeling sorry for himself. He's just like, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. But of course, when he sees this little guy getting brutalized by these two thugs, he can't resist trying to help. Turns out these guys are stronger than he thought, and they overpower him and knock him out. When he wakes up, the small guy is near death. But he tells Kip Berland, he says, I couldn't meet my interest payment on my gambling debt. The interest is higher than the original balance. When I told him I'd go to the police, this is what happened. And then he dies. He says, he's dead. Those fucking scum killed him for a few lousy bucks. Look at this. I've never seen Al McWilliams shade like that. That's really kind of interesting, kind of good. And look, Gray Morrow looking. Then again, Gray Morrow was like all over this Black Hood revival. So I wonder if he redrew some panels. So he basically finds out there's an address book in the dead guy's pocket. He finds out there's this a casino. And he realizes where this mobster hangs out who's been killing all these poor gamblers who can't pay their debts. His name's Lefty Burkett. They let him right into his office. He pulls a gun on him. He says, give me your books. I'll come back and we'll talk dollars. Don't turn wise or you'll end up dead. And Lefty's just kind of like, sure, Hood, don't pull the trigger. Not a very formidable gangster. He goes back to talk to what's-his-face, Doyle, and Doyle Damien, and asks for some advice. And the next time he returns to the warehouse, and these cops show up. He gas pellets them, gives them some knockout gas. And I don't get this part of the plot. He says, I must work fast. I have to victimize one of Burkett's suckers because he has the book, the ledger. And so he goes to this poor guy's house, pulls a gun, and says, from now on, you're going to pay me twice what you're paying Burkett. I don't care if you still have to pay Burkett. That's your problem. Take it up with him. I guess the point is, he's trying to make this guy confront Burkett. That looks like maybe it was redrawn by Gray Morrow, or maybe it's just Al McWilliams stepping up to the plate. And so he tips off the cop. The Black Hood tips off the cops. Turns out that angry man faces Lefty Burke. And he says, this is bullshit. I'm going to the cops. And he says, you just kissed your life goodbye. And Black Hood barges in. Afraid not, Lefty. You'll tell the cops all you know, right? To the guy, the gambler, and he's like, sure thing. And the cops come, and once again, another rocket down and about $1 million to go. Another victory for the Black Hood. And that's it for the Archie Superhero Comics Digest Magazine #2. That's quite a mouthful. Remember, this came out in 1979. A lot of this stuff wasn't reprinted. The new stuff was never seen before, but even those reprints, like you could probably buy these Jack Kirby, Joe Simon Shields now. Somebody put them out somewhere. Back then, this kind of stuff was super rare, getting to see Simon and Kirby from 59. This was some really good stuff. So I doubt you'll ever find this. I think this is super rare by now. These digests people didn't really hold on to them like their old comics. They were kind of disposable, especially from Archie. But if you ever do see this in some weird bookstore, I would pick it up. As you saw, it has a lot of interesting stuff. And even the stuff that's terrible is so bad, it's kind of fun. Almost like a more Weisinger editor comic, So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this with me, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.